Warriors.
Let's get into it.
3 things of interest. I'm going to save the big one to the end. We'll just do this we'll move through this quickly and then have a bigger discussion at I got a big bopper for you. For you folks. But let's start with Klay Thompson. And the headliners would be that there has been absolutely no movement with regard to conversations. And before you say, yeah, but free agency hasn't started yet. It's not how it works for your own free agents. Warriors could sign Klay Thompson anytime they want. And there has been absolutely no movement. Quote, Klay appears ready to test the free agency waters. The Warriors, quote, haven't exactly been beating down his door to work out the framework for an extension. And then here's the one that really got me. Listen to the way Slates wrote this. Because what did the Warriors say about Klay Thompson at the end of the year at exit interviews? What'd they say?
They really want him to still be a Warriors.
We want you back. Okay? Jackson 5. Listen to the way Slater chooses to write this. The Warriors maintain a desire to retain Thompson at the right price once other aspects of their roster retool get clarified. So 2 things get thrown into that sentence. We want Klay, but he's not priority 1.
Right.
And we're not just paying you anything. So you need to be at the right price, and you need to wait over there in the corner for us to figure a bunch of other stuff out first.
Exactly. So what do you want from Klay? Okay, Warriors, that sounds good. I will just sit here quietly and patiently and wait for you to come back at me at the right price, which is probably half of what I could get elsewhere and a third of what you're currently paying me. Because for the Warriors, the right price is probably $14 or $15 million a year for maybe 2 years. That would be the right price that would allow them to undertake the roster retool that they need to do. And first up on their roster retool list, and I don't want to jump ahead because I know you have 2 topics and then the big bopper, but there are other things roster-wise that will predate July 1st and Klay Thompson's free agency.
Correct. Kevon Looney and his contractual situation, Chris Paul and his contractual situation. There are others. The more we read this, the more we hear, the more people we talk to, I think you can start to see the breadcrumbs put together. The Warriors are prioritizing a major move that is not Klay Thompson, and they're prioritizing it over Klay Thompson. This has never been more clear to me than it is right now, based on conversations and listening. The Warriors are going to swing big, and they mean that in ways that are all kinds of not Klay Thompson.
And he knows that, and they have to do that. And honestly, Klay Thompson's probably approaching his free agency the same way, because Anthony Slater mentions in this article that this is really the first time he is a free agent. You go back to the summer of 2019, he was injured. So yes, he was a free agent, but they quickly came to him with a max. He quickly accepted it, and then he went and had surgery. So this is his first real crack at, hey, everybody, who wants a piece of this? And so, of course, he's going to shop himself.
Absolutely. Okay, so that's number 1. Here's number 2. According to Slater, the Warriors had some conversation with former Lakers head coach Darvin Ham in recent weeks. That isn't expected to materialize, but it's a signal of the Warriors' desire to add a big-name assistant. And indications are they're in search of either a former head coach or a former player to fill the role. One thought and one thought only pops to mind when I read that, and it is that they are potentially getting ready to groom a replacement.
I thought about that part of it.
That's how it felt to me.
Little bit. I looked at it slightly differently.
A week and a half after Steve Kerr openly wonders if the next 2 years, and then that'll be it, and it's time for a new voice in this organization.
That is a possible, I think, secondary goal, but I also look at what they're dealing with, and they lost Decky tragically last year, so that's a vacancy on the coaching staff, and Kenny Atkinson is said to be a favorite for the head coaching job in Cleveland. So you already lost Decky. He lost his life. It was tragic. And if you lose Kenny Atkinson, you had Mike Brown leave previously. You're looking at a coaching staff that is becoming more depleted than you're comfortable with. So, yeah, you'd like to bring in somebody who has head coaching experience or somebody who could be possibly the heir apparent when Steve Kerr leaves. But I think first and foremost, you're just trying to shore up your coaching staff because you got vacancies.
Yeah, but I mean, why has it got to be a big name? Why has it got to be someone with head coaching experience?
Doesn't have to be, but that would be your priority.
That's what they want.
And I don't think that Darvin Ham's the guy.
No,
by the way.
And it sounds like it's not.
Yeah.
But my question would be, why? Why does that assistant need to be a big name? Why does it need to be someone who's been a head coach before or has been a former player? I don't think you're making a decision about your next head coach now by any stretch, but I do think that the Warriors have an operation that they have a lot of pride in. Therefore, whoever that next head coach is, you're not going to want him to feel like an outsider. You're going to want him to feel like an insider.
Yeah.
Come in for a couple of years and get to know the culture. Get to know how we do things. It makes that person a little bit more of a candidate, I would say.
It does, but I think if you look at the history of assistant coaches here with Steve Kerr, you've already done this every single time. Alvin Gentry, former head coach, he's an assistant, gets a gig. Mike Brown, same thing. Kenny Atkinson, same thing. If he goes out now and gets a gig. So I do Luke Walton was the guy you brought in, and he went out and got a gig as a head coach. So I do think this is how you conduct business, but in light of the Steve Kerr comments, it does make you step back a little bit and think the way you're thinking about it in terms of, trying to groom the successor.
Ready for the big old bopper?
Been waiting.
Okay, I wonder if you've all heard this, because this will raise your eyebrows. 2 situations of note on the player availability market this offseason. 2 big names. And this goes the opposite of the way that I would have thought. Slater says if Brandon Ingram becomes available via trade, he does not expect the Warriors to show any interest at all. He does not expect them to show interest. However, if the Heat shop Jimmy Butler, he would expect the Warriors to enter the conversation.
All right.
That's just about backwards from what I would have guessed.
Oh, and I love to hear it because I'm not.
Oh, I'm not necessarily against it.
No, I know.
I know you're against the idea of Ingram.
Yeah, not firmly hard and fast against it. I don't necessarily love the player. He is a little bit too much like Anthony Davis for me. And you already have that in Andrew Wiggins.
What, brittle?
Just a little seldom. A little bit of a seldom competitor.
I like that word.
It's
not quite Kawhi, but anyway, go ahead. It's your best impression.
Thank you.
Bar none.
That and my one word, Reagan. Well, that's, it's a little dated, but not huge fan of Ingram. The only thing with Jimmy Butler and Steiny was going off on this earlier, Steiny and Guru show 10-2. He's an older player. He's 35 and he's starting to show some injury signs, but I like the dog in Jimmy Butler.
Like the dog.
I like the dog in him.
Okay, but what about, Jimmy Butler and Draymond Green on the same team? What could go wrong?
Not a thing.
What could go wrong?
I don't know what their relationship is like.
Well, it's not about their relationship. It's about who Jimmy Butler clearly is. And I don't know Jimmy Butler.
Yeah.
I have no idea. I've never been around Jimmy Butler.
Well, the stories you hear is he's an alpha. He's an alpha's alpha.
And alpha is fine. I got no issue with alpha. But alpha who wears people out is different. And I do think there are people, even if you've never met him, and that you can start to see a track record. Like I feel about Jimmy Butler the same way I feel about Stephon Diggs. Stephon Diggs is a wonderful player. He's an incredible wide receiver. It's clear to me, just by watching his career and listening to the comments of teammates, that dude wears people out. Jim Harbaugh is a phenomenal coach. It is clear to me that he wears people out. And so every 5 to 7 years, wherever he is, he leaves an organization in better shape, but it's time to leave. because everyone wants to strangle him. Well, are we talking about the exact same thing with Jimmy Butler, who was ripped as quickly as 2 weeks ago by his own boss in Pat Riley? There's the Minnesota experience. There's the Philadelphia experience. We could go on. Jimmy Butler is somebody who wears people out. Now, does that work? Because the Warriors probably only want him for a hot minute. What's left on the deal?
He's got 2 years.
Okay.
2 years remaining. He's got 48.8 and then a player opt for 52.4.
How the hell do you fit that? I know that if there's a will, there's a way.
That's a big meatball.
I know if there's a will, there's a way. But my God. Like,
I wonder if the fit here wouldn't be better because of Draymond Green. I think about Minnesota, and, you know, it was a team at the time without Anthony Edwards that was pretty soft. The kitty cat wasn't yet established, and it was a team without real tough guys, real alphas. And then in Philadelphia, you had the Ben Simmons situation, and I think that was still a bad fit. And then he got to Miami, and it actually worked in Miami for a long time. They went to 2 NBA finals, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. He's a fantastic player.
And I think that if he came to a situation like this, it would be more difficult for him to alienate and exert his will with Draymond Green in the building.
You even remember, and I know you do, but I wonder how many people, does anybody remember that the majority of his career was spent on the Chicago Bulls?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Feels like so long ago. It wasn't. It was 6 years ago,
right?
That he played for the Chicago Bulls. He was only in Minnesota for a second. He was only in Philadelphia for a second. He's now been in Miami for 5 years. And again, wore him out, and wore him out.
Traded by the Bulls.
Yep.
For Chris Dunn, Zach LaVine, and Lauri Markkanen. Traded by Minnesota for Covington, Dario Saric in the trade. And then as a 4-team trade, he was traded by Philadelphia to Miami, and the Clippers were involved, and Jaime Jaquez was a part of that deal.
And if he comes here, it will be a trade again. So when you get traded and then traded.
That'd be the 4th time he gets traded.
Traded and then traded. When you're that good, what does that tell you?
It is a red flag.
You'd be wearing people out.
You're right. That's definitely the Stephon Diggs side of it, but equally like Diggs, the dude has got game, 21 a night this year, and he can shoot the 3. He can get to the foul line, which this team doesn't really have. He's a good defender, and he's a guy who wants to win. He's a competitor.
Yeah, oh, yes. No, I love the idea. Super selfish. Like, we're in sports media. Give me as many crazy people as you can find.
Right.
And put them on the team. That's wonderful. And you know, would the culture fit? Maybe. You might be right. You know what I mean? Like, he comes into a situation where it's later in his career and he does not need to be the king alpha or even the best player because that job it belongs to Steph Curry. He doesn't even need to just be the bad guy. That belongs to Draymond Green. Maybe it feels good to him at this point in his career, 34 years old, and they can pitch him on, hey, Jimmy, just come here and be you. Just come here and play hard. You don't need to be the face of this. It's not on your shoulders. Just come here and be you. Maybe. Do remember this is a trade, which means something's going out. Something's on the way out in order to get him in.
Yeah. And
what are you giving up for Jimmy Butler?
Well, and you'd have to give out 46, 47 million worth of assets unless you got below the luxury tax before the trade, and then you don't have to match dollar for dollar and all the rest of the nonsense.
Well, this is probably where, one of 2 names would have to be involved. It's either Andrew Wiggins or Chris Paul's contract. And oddly, I bet Miami would be more interested in Chris Paul's contract than Andrew Wiggins. I could be wrong.
Yeah, I don't know if they would because you know, you're a team that wants a player. You don't want just a contract that you would then waive and have the room.
They're not close.
Miami?
They're not close. I know it feels like they're close. They're not close. They went on an epic, improbable run. And now forever, I almost hate it because now forever, everyone's like, no, you can do it out of the play-in tournament. No, you can't. Not usually, if ever, can you do it out of the play-in tournament just because Jimmy Butler went on an historic run. That's very, very rare. And so I don't think when you look at the Eastern Conference, Miami is very close.
Right, but what does Miami think? And I can't imagine Pat Riley is in the boardroom thinking about a 2 to 3 year rebuild, nor is Eric Spoelstra.
No, but look, so you're not close, you're getting further away, and you're looking to trade your best player? That doesn't sound like a team that's like, so we can win it all next year.
Well, you only are looking to trade your best player because your best player is blowing up the spot again. I don't think you're looking at Jimmy Butler and thinking, you know what, we got to get rid of this guy because we don't want a 21-point-a-game alpha male on our team, the guy who can lead us to deep into the postseason. We don't want that. It's because he's, like you said, he's become maybe an untenable personality in the organization. So you got to pivot. You're not looking to blow the whole thing up and retool.
I don't know about that. I hear what you're saying, but at the same time, I'm kind of like, look, this is pro sports. If somebody's being a pain in the rear, but you still think they can lead you to a win, you're going to keep them. Good God, look what the Warriors have done with Draymond Green. You could tell me, like, you just have to, guy's pain in the butt, so we got to move him. Not if you think he can help you.
Well, not if he thinks he can help him, and that's Steph Curry. Imagine if there was no Steph Curry, Draymond would have been gone years ago.
Right, but again, the organization also has his back and clearly believes he's still really good at basketball and very, very effective toward winning. So Miami is not, in my opinion at least, they're not just like, well, Jimmy's amazing and he's our best chance, but gosh, I don't like being around him, so let's get rid of him. I don't think that's Miami's thought process. I think their thought process is he's 34, he's only getting older, we're getting further away, and he's a pain in the rear. Let's see if we can change this up a little bit. And if you're changing it up, are you going Andrew Wiggins or are you going, let's get a bunch of salary room? Because that's what Chris Paul would represent.
Right. I just don't envision Miami going that route and looking for salary room and looking to just take it on the chin for a year. Pat Riley has been known for winning, and they've won. And I know they haven't won the title there in a long time in Miami, but I just can't see him, wanting to take it on the chin. I'm looking at a clip from Udonis Haslem saying hell to the no about talk of Jimmy Butler leaving Miami. So it might just be bluster from Jimmy Butler to get a rework deal. And I know he's got one more year and then he's got a player option. So he might just be fishing for a little extension.
The larger point when you put all of these puzzle pieces together to me, and I know you're gonna agree with this, is these are just breadcrumbs, but piece them all together. Forget the coaching one.
It's a loaf of bread.
Yeah, thank you. But, okay, the behavior toward Klay Thompson combined with the Warriors are going to be all in on trading for big names. These things all lead to the same conclusion for me, which is that the Warriors are not that into the idea of keeping Klay Thompson. Klay's a fallback. Klay's a fallback unless he wants to play for a very little amount of money.
That's the thing. And even if they have to fall back to that position, maybe you get to like July 10th and Klay hasn't signed anywhere and you haven't been able to make any big swings and now you're both sitting there. Maybe you come to terms late in free agency and he does return, but I would bet, and there's a number of teams Anthony Slater mentions in the piece who have cap room and who are close to being winning teams, and that's what Klay wants. Klay wants to win, and he wants to make a decent amount of money commensurate with his skills, and I think there are enough of those teams out there so that the Warriors won't have a chance to be the fallback.
It's just interesting because if you remember what Ramona Shelburne said to us a few weeks ago, she said that the way they approach Klay is maybe the most important thing, not the money. Because, Klay Thompson's not going to break the bank this time around, relatively speaking. And Klay Thompson doesn't need to break the bank. Klay's all set on money for the rest of his life. So, sure, he wants to be paid. He wants to be paid well. But he might be more interested or willing to take a little bit less to be a career Warrior and continue to hang out with his guys. But the way the Warriors approach him, the role they foresee, the way they kind of make him feel with their offer is going to be of the utmost importance. Well, here's the start that it's off to.
Well,
hey, Klay, sit over there and wait. We haven't even gotten to you yet. And we don't know if we will.
Well, they could have extended him already.
Right.
And he could have signed an extension offer. But I would imagine that they made an offer for him to get an extension, and it probably wasn't anywhere near what he thinks he can get on the open market, and they know that.
Yeah. So you can weigh in on